Who would like to read this for me? This sheet here. Ancient Egyptian economy. Sarah, why don't you read for me, please?
Sounds great. I was like, I hope, I was like, I always volunteer, so I didn't know if I should give someone else a chance. Okay, so ancient Egyptian economy, mixed economy, traditional market, commercial, primarily based on staple foods, wealth measured in food supplies, agriculture, flooding late August and September, planting in October, papyrus plants, paper, mats, baskets, footwear, rope, crops, grains, lettuce, beans, onions, figs, dates, grapes, melons, and cucumber. Industry, craftspeople, small shops around towns and cities, stonemasons, silversmiths, goldsmiths, boat builders, and jewelers. Mining, limestone, sandstone, granite, copper, gold, tin, and gems. Trade, barter system, goods, taxes, loans, currency introduced in 1580 BCE, caravans, Nile River, Mediterranean Sea, sails invented in 3000 BCE.
Good, thank you. Okay, so it's just, again, a very brief overview of Egyptian economy, what we're going to be looking at. So again, agriculture. So you have flooding in, in the late August and early September, and planting usually occurs in October. Okay, you could see some of the crops that are grown. In terms of industry, you got a lot going on now. Stonemasons, silversmiths, goldsmiths, jewelers, miners, limestone's a big one, sandstone, granite, okay? And of course, trading with other different groups, okay? Currency is not introduced until 1580 BC, okay? So not for a while. So today we're going to focus on the Old Kingdom. Okay, so we have ancient Egypt here. This is a really good PowerPoint that I have here. We're not going to go through all of it today. I'm just going to introduce it to you. So, Sarah, you're going to continue reading the Nile River. I know some of you took notes on this, so let's go through it.
Awesome. Nile River, the longest river in the world. It is 6,785 kilometers long. Egyptians only knew of 1,500 kilometers of it. Cataracts, waterfalls along the Nile River that protected the Egyptians from invasion. Herodotus?
Herodotus?
Herodotus called Egypt the gift of the Nile. One, it was the only source of water in Egypt. Two, without the Nile, the Egyptian culture would never have existed. Predictable flooding every September.
Good, yeah. So September or October, okay? Either late September or early October. Okay, so just some quick facts about the Nile. Okay, let's keep going. Here's a picture of the Nile. And here's cataract, just a waterfall which protected them from the southern part of the Nile, invaders coming from the south. This is a cataract here. It's just a waterfall. And here's a better look at the Nile Delta. And another part of your points was natural barriers, please. Tina, please.
Okay, so natural barriers. It did not have iron. Settlers chose the banks of the Nile because the river provided water for survival. There were seas and deserts that surrounded the land. Libyan Desert, Nubian Desert, Arabian Desert, and Sinai Desert. Cataracts also made invasion difficult. Note, Mediterranean will become major outlet for trade, commerce, and source of knowledge.
Yes. So Egyptian history, wow. Egyptian history. Tina, you're going to continue here. We're going to go back now to roughly 3000 BC. That's when it starts, roughly 3100 BC, okay?
All right, sir. So Egyptian history. There are two kingdoms of Egypt. There's Lower Egypt, which is north of Thebes, and Upper Egypt, which is south of Thebes. So in 3100 BC, Menes or Narmer, the first pharaoh, united Upper and Lower Egypt.
Good. So King Menes, also called King Narmer. Okay, he was the first pharaoh. The first pharaoh. He was the first one to unite Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Okay, so to unite it as one. Okay, so we start with King Menes around Narmer, around 31,000 BC. Continue reading. So just a quick overview of Egyptian government. Pharaoh.
So Pharaoh, ruler of ancient Egypt. It means great house. Pharaoh was all powerful and claimed to be a living god. He was the descendant of the sun god Amun-Re. And Vizier, which is the supervisor, a government official who helped the pharaoh rule by supervising business affairs.
Good. Yeah. The vizier was like a vice president, right? The vizier was vice president to the pharaoh, right? The leader, the president. So, yeah. So pharaoh, ruler of ancient Egypt. We're going to learn about many pharaohs, right? Means the great house, all powerful, and he was considered to be the descendant of a god, the sun god, Amun-Re. Okay, so this is important here. There are really three major periods, right? We go the major periods, so three major periods: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. Those are the main three: Old, Middle, and New. Today we're going to just start with the Old Kingdom. Okay, so roughly 3000 BC to 2100 BC. Okay, first intermediate. The intermediate means a decline. Okay, a downtime or a dark period. Okay, so the Old Kingdom, roughly 3000 to 2100 BC, around there. So these are the major periods. So we also call the Old Kingdom the age of the pyramids, right? Great pyramid building, which I'm sure you guys have heard and read about. Age of the pyramids. Okay, Tina, please.
So Old Kingdom from 3000 to 2150 BC, the age of the pyramids. So Egypt faces no threats in this period. Egypt had no full-time army at this time. They had no enemies, but they would have to deal with odd attacks from nomads. They had a population of 2 million and their capital was Memphis. So they had the first tombs called Masataba. It was a step pyramid and underground chamber as the tomb. Egyptian used mud bricks for building, so it was straw, mud, pebbles, and tar. They invented hieroglyphics from 4500 to 3100 BC. They were stuck in the Copper Age, and it was very religious and superstitious. They were good/bad times attributed to king.
Good. Thank you. So this is just an overview, okay, of what the Old Kingdom was about. So again, this was a very peaceful time, relatively peaceful, not too many threats, right? They still did have no full-time army at this time. Capital was in Lower Egypt, Memphis. Okay, Memphis. The first tombs were called mastabas, which was a step pyramid I'm going to show you. They used mud brick. And so cuneiform was a writing in Mesopotamia, but in Egypt, we have what's called hieroglyphics. That's Egyptian writing, hieroglyphics, which will be advanced as we go through the kingdoms. Okay. much more sophisticated. Thing about Egypt is that they were stuck in the Copper Age. Okay, eventually around 1000 BC, we enter the Iron Age, and that was part of their downfall too. They were not able to adapt to new technology, okay, and resources. So copper, and again, very religious. Egypt was a very conservative civilization, very conservative, very religious. Let's get a new reader. Who can we get? Richard?
Hi, sir.
Hi, Richard. Go ahead.
Old Kingdoms, Age of the Pyramids. Pharaohs were all powerful over their people's lives. Step Pyramid is built for
Joseph.
Djoser's third dynasty at Saqqara. Imhotep, architect. Great Pyramids of Giza. 3 pyramids.
Khufu.
Khufu, the largest in the world. Khafre, Khufu's son. Menkaure, Khafre's son. Sorry
Yeah.
about the pronunciation.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I make mistakes all the time too. So the step pyramid here, built for Djoser, and Imhotep was the famous architect at the time. And then, of course, you have the Great Pyramids of Giza, okay, built for these 3, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Here's the Great Sphinx. I'm sure you've seen the Great Sphinx. It's beautiful. Look at that. Read, please.
Do you want me to continue?
Yes. Yep.
Oh. Great Sphinx of Giza. Stone statue with a lion's body and pharaoh's head built to guard the pyramids. Face of Khafre. Building of pyramids caused heavy taxes, government debt, and human suffering.
Well, yeah. Think about look how big that is, and look at the people there. The time, the muscle that was needed to build something like this. And here's the mastaba, Arabic for bench. Okay. Mastaba. Underground burial chamber. That's really what a mastaba is, an underground burial chamber. Here's the step pyramid of Djoser, built by Imhotep, first known artist in history. And if we take a look at the topography or the design, you can see now we are west of the Nile River in Lower Egypt. You have Pyramid of Khufu here, Pyramid of Khafre here, and Pyramid of Menkaure here. And the Great Sphinx over here. Okay. So next we're going to move, Richard, the reasons for the decline of the Old Kingdom.
Yeah, so first of all, low rainfall and decreased flooding of Nile River led to drought and famine. Secondly, civil war within Egypt. Nobles against king will be overthrown. Lastly, pyramids have exhausted economy, heavy taxes, government debt, and human suffering.
Good. So what brings us into the first intermediate period or dark age for the Egyptians? Well, of course, geography, right? They were dependent on the Nile. So when you have low rainfall or decreased flooding, you get drought or famine. Okay. Civil war within Egypt, nobles against the king. Okay, so you have a civil war brewing. And pyramids, of course, they exhausted the economy with all the manpower and the resources that had to be used.
Sir, I have a question.
Sure.
You said the Egyptians were like really like religious and conservative at this time, right?
Mm.
So how come like the nobles thought it was okay to like try to usurp the king if he was like supposed to be God on earth? Like what made them think that was okay?
Because they're humans, and humans are flawed, and this is throughout history, whether religious or not, there's always an attempt for change, right? Whether it be change, whether it be greed. um, the nobles wanted more for themselves, right? And politics got involved. That's what we always see happen in some of these civilizations, whether they're religious or not. um, Yep, there's just in-house fighting amongst nobles and the upper class, and sometimes that brings about civil war.
All right, thanks, sir.
We saw that in Egypt. Yeah, I mean, again, this is a lot of this at this time is speculation from what we think happened. Remember, in the Old Kingdom, this is roughly 25,000 BC. We just don't have all the information we'd like to have, but from what we understand, yes, there was certainly civil war brewing in Egypt. Okay, so brings the first intermediate period or Dark Age period, which lasted roughly 100 years. Sabrina, actually, can you read for me, please?
Yeah. First intermediate period, 2150 BC to 2040 BC. The central government loses power, dominance, control of local resources, cities, Heracleopolis and Thebes.
Thebes, yep.
Mentuhotep II leads the Theban dynasty to victory, established 11th dynasty.
Established 11th dynasty. Good. Okay, so central government loses power. Provincial governors compete for dominance. Yes. Okay, two of these major cities, okay, are at war with each other. That's another thing, right? City-state against city-state. Okay.
Sir,
Yes, Nick.
how long would a dynasty usually be for?
Oh, that's hard to say. Some of them are very short. Some of them are very long. So it just depends on how long a family can maintain and hold power. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm going to stop there for today. I think today I just want to go through the Old Kingdom in geography. I think I'm going to stop there. I'm going to allow you guys to go through that PowerPoint and take some notes. Okay, so we stopped up until slide 17. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys go back, take some notes. I also have this package. I think today would be a good day for you to read. Okay, so I would like you to read. You don't have to read the whole thing, but tomorrow we're going to focus more on the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom. So today maybe it'll be a good chance for you guys to spend some time reading. Okay, reading our package that I have for you here. Okay. And before that, I did want to show you this, a journey down the Nile. So let me show you this first. Yeah.
If you've ever dreamed of exploring ancient Egypt, longed to follow in the footsteps of the pharaohs, or imagined the desert sun setting over the Emerald Nile, you're ready to step aboard a Nile River cruise. For over 5,000 years, the Nile has been the lifeblood of Egypt, and there's simply no better way to experience that wealth of Egyptian history, culture, and architecture than on a Nile River cruise. The Nile is a wonder in its own right, the wellspring of civilization in ancient Egypt and northern Africa for the last 10,000 years. In a desert region where it only rains a few times a year, the Nile is the only consistent source of water to sustain the necessities of civilization, such as agriculture and drinking water. The Nile River is the longest in the world, at 6,695 kilometers. For good reason. Most of the great cities and wonders in ancient Egypt and neighboring Sudan were built along its banks. Let's start our journey at perhaps the most famous of these ancient wonders, the Pyramids of Giza. The Giza Plateau is the northern extension of the necropolis of Memphis on the west bank of the Nile, and is today among the suburbs of modern Cairo. When visiting the Giza pyramids for the first time, you anticipate the experience of standing before these magnificent structures, rising out of the desert sands in a kind of time warp. The Giza Plateau is famous for 3 pyramids. Khufu's son, Khafre, constructed a pyramid next to his father's monument. From a distance, Khafre's pyramid looks higher than Khufu's, but this illusion is due to the structure's site on rising ground. The 3rd pyramid belongs to Menkaure and is the smallest of the 3. When they were built, they were encased in thousands of blocks of white limestone from the Tura quarries across the river, and must have presented an imposing sight, shining from a great distance in the scorching sunlight of the desert. Now, most of the casing stones have gone, stolen in ancient times, but some can still be seen on the apex of Khafre's pyramid. To date, archaeologists have found 118 pyramids in Egypt, but the most perfect and biggest of them all is that built by Khufu, a ruler from the 4th dynasty, 2600 to 2487 BC. Known as the Great Pyramid, the 147-meter structure is the first of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, and the only one still standing. More than 4,500 years ago, about 100,000 workers painstakingly stacked up 2 million limestone blocks over 20 years to create a pyramid with a precise 51-degree slope on 4 sides. The structure consists of an enormous quantity of limestone blocks estimated at around 2,300,000, quarried from an area southeast of the pyramid and transported over a ramp to the construction site. Khafre's monuments have survived better than most, and his period makes an impressive backdrop to the Great Sphinx, which lies next to his causeway and was probably part of the pyramid complex. To the north of Khafre's Valley Temple lies the Great Sphinx in its own enclosure. It is currently thought to have been modeled during Khafre's reign and would have been the first colossal statue in ancient Egypt. This monument, almost the national emblem of Egypt, has sparked the imagination of travelers, scholars, poets, and writers for centuries. Fashioned from an outcrop of limestone left behind from the quarrying of stone of the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx crouches in a rectangular ditch bounded by Khafre's causeway to the south. It is a colossal crouching lion with a human head, thought to be carved with the features of Khafre, though this is the subject of some debate. The body of the Sphinx, almost 60 meters long and 20 meters high, was carved from alternate soft and hard layers of sediments and marly limestone laid down during the formation of the Giza Plateau in the geological Eocene period. Before leaving Cairo and heading downriver, it is worth visiting the oldest pyramid in the world, the Step Pyramid at Saqqara. Saqqara is the location of the principal necropolis of ancient Memphis, dating from the time of the foundation of the city. The site covers 9,000 hectares, crowded with burials that span much of the whole period of Egyptian antiquity. A quick flight to Luxor Airport, and we're soon on our way, cruising down the Nile. Before we depart, however, we need to visit 2 sites of great importance, Karnak Temple and Luxor Temple. Thebes was the capital of New Kingdom Egypt. Karnak is the biggest temple complex in the world, covering an area of 100 hectares, and there is nowhere more impressive to the first-time visitor. Much of it was restored during the last century, and our knowledge of the buildings here in different periods of Egyptian history increases every year. In ancient times, Karnak was known as Ipet Isut, the most select of places. The temples are built along two axes, east-west and north-south, with the original Middle Kingdom shrine built on a mound in the center of what is now called the Temple of Amun. An avenue of ram-headed sphinxes leads the visitor towards the entrance. The sphinxes are fantastic beasts with the body of a lion and the head of a ram, a symbol of the god Amun. Through the entrance is the famous hypostyle hall. Standing among its 134 gigantic columns, the visitor can't help but be inspired by the grandeur of the place. The center 12 columns are larger, at 21 meters tall, and have open papyrus capitals which may have been intended to symbolize the original mound of creation. The other 122 columns are 15 meters tall and have closed capitals, perhaps representing the swamp that surrounded the mound. The hypostyle hall was begun by Amenhotep III, who built the side walls which close off the space between the second and third pylons. It was not completed until the reign of Seti I, who carved his beautiful raised reliefs around the walls of the northern half. His son, Ramesses II, completed the decoration of the southern half of the walls and pillars, often overcarving his father's reliefs with his own crude sunk relief carvings. Following a paved path along the side of the central court, the visitor comes to a building known as the Festival Temple of Tuthmosis III, anciently called Most Splendid of Monuments. The pillars inside the hall are said to imitate the ancient tent poles of a pavilion, unique in Egyptian architecture, and still show good remains of the colored decoration. Moving west, past the shrine of the gods' wives of Amun, we come to the open-air museum, which houses various blocks and reconstructed shrines found in other parts of Karnak. French archaeologists have spent the past few years rebuilding the chapel from the available blocks, a very difficult task due to the original construction techniques. On the other side of the Temple of Amun, to the south, the visitor comes to the Sacred Lake. The area in the foreground was originally a fowl yard, and the domesticated birds belonging to Amun were driven from here through a stone tunnel to the lake each day. Karnak can be a confusing place. Its buildings span a long period in Egyptian history. Most visitors on guided tours had very little time to see much of the temple, and many visits are needed to get even a brief idea of the temple as a whole. The earliest remains found at Luxor Temple date to the 8th dynasty. Unusually, the temple does not face the river, but its main access faces Karnak, with the remains of an avenue of sphinxes pointing to the processional way. This remaining 200-meter avenue of human-headed sphinxes was erected by Nekhutnebu I. The modern entrance to the temple is to the west, and after descending the new stone steps, the visitor faces the massive pylon. From the Greek word meaning gate, a pylon is a monumental entrance wall to a temple, a gateway in the form of a pair of truncated pyramids serving as the entrance to the temple. This one at Luxor Temple is 21 meters high, which was a later addition by Ramesses II. 6 statues of Ramesses stood here before, but only 3 remain, with one of the original pair of tall obelisks. The court of Ramesses II would have been the original forecourt of Amenhotep III's building. On the northwestern side is a triple ship shrine of Amun, Mut, and Khonsu, constructed in sandstone, with features belonging to the earlier structure of Hatshepsut, retained in the rebuilding. Ramesses's great court features a colonnade around each of its sides, interspaced with colossal statues, many of which the king usurped from Amenhotep III. When entering the colonnade of Amenhotep, you may notice a slight change in the access of the earlier part of the temple. This colonnade, with its 14 tall papyrus columns, was unfinished at Amenhotep's death, and its decoration only completed during the reign of Tutankhamun. The colonnade leads into the elegant columned court of Amenhotep III, with ship shrines of Mut and Khonsu at its southern end. Beyond the portico on the south side of the court is a room which was transformed into a cult chapel of the Roman legion based at Luxor during the 3rd century AD. The room was plastered over, and this has served to preserve the painted reliefs of Amenhotep III. A niche-shaped shrine is now a modern entrance to a small offering hall or vestibule with pharaonic scenes of sacrifices and offerings to the gods. Leaving Luxor behind, we're soon cruising down the Nile. Our next stop is Esna. Esna Temple dates back to
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. We will continue this as we make our own journey through Egypt and the Middle and New Kingdom.
We're going to Egypt?
I wish we can go on a class trip to Egypt. I wish. Okay. So I'm going to stop there, guys. It's now 1:45. I am not going to assign any additional homework because I want you to work on your assignment, Guns, Germs, and Steel. Okay. But I will recommend that you read the package, continue reading where you left off here on